Well, now to a developing story today. A rocky midweek finish to the stock market. A new GDP report today showed the economy shrank in the first quarter of the year at a 0.3% annual rate. So that is down from growth that we saw in the last 3 months of last year at 2.4%. Experts say this is the worst quarterly performance for the U.S. economy in the last few years. So what does that really mean when we hear the economy is going into reverse and it's shrinking? Well, joining us today to talk more about this is Duane Donaldson. He's an assistant professor of finance at the Columbus State Community College. Good to have you back with us on this topic.
Yeah, thank you.
So what does it mean when we say the GDP, which is the gross domestic product, is shrinking?
What it really means is that the GDP is actually a value of all the goods and services in our economy, and those statistics come out once a quarter. And what it really does mean is that the value of the net goods and services after taking away imports is valued. So what's happened in the first quarter is a couple of normal things. One is that the new administration comes in. You usually have a flattening for a period of time while the economy, Wall Street and others see what's going to happen.
Sure.
Then you have the issue of the national debt that has gone up almost $10 trillion in the last 4 years. So we're trying to get a stranglehold on that through DOGE and some other things that you've heard about. And at the same time, they're trying to take on tariffs because the biggest reason is there's a $9 trillion reset coming later this year, which is 1/4 of our national debt.
So that's why we're not seeing this flattening. We're seeing a huge drop, is what we're saying.
Yes, you're seeing a drop in a short period of time, mostly because of the tariffs, a little bit because government spending is down, which was planned. The good thing is consumer spending is slightly up, maybe not as much as they want, but it's slightly up. And investment in the country is starting to increase. So that's a good sign for the future, but tough in the short term because that doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, and so when we hear about these, the economy shrinking, the imports aren't coming in as much, then we're also worried about prices perhaps. Is that going to be going up?
That's right. Prices may go up in the short term, and that is primarily because as we use up we've had an increase of imports of 43% in the last quarter, which is very large. So our inventories are large. When those start to shrink over the summer and early fall, because we won't hold inventories forever, then you could see prices increase if the tariffs stay on. Again, that should be a short-term thing because you're also going to have tariff money coming in. So there will be an offset, and companies will try to stay competitive so they won't try to let prices get out of control because someone will beat them to the punch and take over their market share.
They're trying to figure out who's going to get there first, right?
That's right.
Okay, so I'm going to say the dreaded word recession because that keeps coming up as we hear more about these tariffs, consumer confidence going up and it's falling. Do you think that's likely?
It's possible. The standard definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of GDP downfall. This last quarter is iffy. It's down slightly, but it's due to this net import issue. So if that lingers on and continues, which probably won't realistically because inventories can only grow so high, people only invest so long. So if it does happen, is it the worst thing in the world? Many economists would say no, because it's like a cleaning of the house. If you want to improve your health, sometimes you have to go on a diet, sometimes you have to exercise. That's not good in the short term, but the long term it's good because we become more efficient.
All right.
So we have to see where it's going to go before we can make that judgment.
In other words, we're going to have Duane Donaldson returning here at the end of the second quarter when we see what the next GDP report says and see whether we're flat or maybe higher.
That's right. We'll see how we respond.
Duane, thank you so much. Appreciate you putting that in perspective for us.
You're welcome.